We are live, ladies and gentlemen. MCJ Report 113. Welcome to the broadcast. I hope that you're doing well, no matter where you tuned in from. And let me know where you tuned in from. Go ahead and put it in the comments. So a good evening to my fellow Victorians, fellow Australians, and fellow freedom-loving people from around the world. You're watching MCJ Report, episode 113. So we are live on 3 platforms this evening. That's right, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Rumble. So let me know that you are hearing the broadcast loud and clear. I hope that everything is going really well in your neck of the woods. Of course, here in Victoria, we're dealing with an absolute lunatic, a man who should never be in the position that he's in. That's right. He seems to think he's the Premier of Victoria, and unfortunately, I think technically he is. His name's Daniel Andrews. We're going to have a good talk about him on the show because in my very, very firm view, this man has stepped over the line and he is unleashing a bully campaign on an industrial scale. That's right. The amount of hurt that this man is inflicting on Victoria, I say, is just an absolute abomination, and it's nothing that one person, it's no type of power that one person should be able to wield, especially to the likes of Daniel Andrews. So we're going to talk about that. Also, we've got, what else we're going to talk about? We're going to talk about New South Wales. We see the Premier and the Deputy Premier stepping down, all right? So they've stepped down and we've got somebody new coming in, somebody I don't know all that much about, but we're going to have a bit of a talk about him on the show this evening. Also, over the weekend, we've seen more tyranny enforcement in Melbourne. That's right. We've seen peaceful protesters, nurses, teachers, and other people dragged away by Victoria Police. So unfortunately, that's not changing. But we'll keep doing what we do, and we'll keep shining a light on this tyranny because it just needs to be exposed. But we're also going to shine a light on some Victoria Police officers who did the right thing in country Victoria, just to show a little bit of a contrast in policing and to hopefully send a message to the Metro Police that they can actually act a little bit differently. But we're not going to hold our breath, are we? Victoria Police, they've shown us that they love getting violent, and I think they just enjoy it. I think it's just, I think it's something really sick. But anyway, and we'll chat about a few other bits and pieces as well. So I just want to make sure that we're connected okay. I can see that we are. There's Alison, Paula, Ray, Phil, Chris, Shazza, Peter. I see a lot of familiar names. It's great to have you guys here. Please go ahead and share the broadcast far and wide. Let's get the message out there. We are independent media, that's right. We don't belong to the big conglomerates. We don't have people telling us what we can say and what we can't say. That's right. We are MCJ Report. I can see some of you tuned in on Rumble right now. Whoa, I think nearly 300 people on Rumble. If you're on Rumble, let me know in the comments section on Rumble whether or not it's a good transmission. And I can see, as per usual, we have people on Facebook and also on YouTube. So no matter where you're tuned in from, I'm happy that you're here. We are the resistance, and we're going to keep fighting until the very end. Anyway, let's get this show started, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so first of all, if you're not following me on Telegram, make sure you do. Or at minimum, make sure you go and get Telegram. Telegram is censorship free. It's the most important tool of our time. All the action you could possibly want to get your hands on in relation to Corona action, I guess we could call it, you can find it on Telegram. So go to the App Store and go and grab it. All right, let's get this started, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, this needs to be addressed, and I'm just going to keep sending the message as many times as I need to in order to ensure the message gets out there as far and wide as humanly possible. And this is a message to my home state, my state where I was born and raised, Victoria, specifically to Victorian employers. And the message is ignore Daniel Andrews. That's right. I know that you've all seen the news. We have seen the outlandish demands of Daniel Andrews that apply to, I believe, 1.25 million people. Daniel Andrews has overstepped the boundaries. He's thrown a temper tantrum. Instead of doing what he should do, as in listening to people who have concerns, he has doubled down and acted in a way that can only be described as abusive but on an industrial scale. Some people might make the argument that Daniel Andrews is entering into the waters of crimes against humanity, which is typically defined by an industrial scale crime that negatively affects huge amounts of people. Daniel Andrews is robbing Victorians of their dignity, and he is humiliating huge amounts of people. The very notion of being forced to choose between a medical intervention or providing for your family is utter cruelty and complete, it's abuse. This is government-initiated abuse upon the people. What Daniel Andrews doesn't seem to realize is that we, the people, actually have more power than what he has. He only has his power because we, the people, make that possible. It's us Victorians that pay his wages. He seems to forget that he serves us. Well, he certainly doesn't serve us. I say that he serves himself. He serves his own self-interests, and he serves what he considers to be in the interests of his ambitions. And I dare say Daniel Andrews takes after the likes of people that he looks up to, perhaps in the Chinese Communist Party. And for whatever reason, he thinks that he can rule Victoria with an iron fist. I mean, honestly, Victorian employers, are you really going to take orders from this absolute grub? Are you really going to violate the human rights of your workers, the people that make your business what it is, the people that work, that have given years, decades to your business, building it up? You know, in our country, we have a tremendous history of fighting for workers' rights, and that's something that I'm personally very proud about. You think decades and decades ago to the trade union movement and fighting for the 8-hour workday and fighting for good, decent conditions and the right to earn a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And we see this guy, Daniel Andrews, essentially undoing everything that we've worked for in one lousy press conference. And to all the Victorian employers out there, think about it very, very deeply. Is Daniel Andrews acting lawfully? Have you asked yourself that question? Have you asked yourself whether or not you pledge your loyalty first to your workers or first to Daniel Andrews? I mean, this guy thinks he's Kim Jong-un. He thinks that he is the almighty leader of Victoria, who doesn't have to open parliament, doesn't have to hold debates. He just espouses demands that never go through any meaningful oversight, and then expects everybody to comply. This is the type of behavior and system of governance you'd expect to see in an absolute dictatorship, and we're seeing it here in Victoria, Australia. There is nothing democratic and nothing humane about what this man is requesting from Victorian employers, and it's completely at odds with what we've heard in the past from Scott Morrison. So Andrews is at odds with Scott Morrison, okay? This demand that Daniel Andrews is putting forward, that, as I mentioned, applies to over 1 million Victorian workers, 1.25 I believe was the estimate, is utterly at odds with the position of the federal government. Now, we've seen this from Daniel Andrews before in the past in his relationships with China. I know that a lot of you followed his movements. Since the inception of his tenure as Premier, Daniel Andrews wasted no time running off to China, signing deals behind closed doors. We had to fight tooth and nail to have the Memorandum of Understanding released. Daniel Andrews did what he wanted. He circumvented the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, and he took a look at Australian foreign policy, decided he didn't like it, and he said to himself that he's going to create his own Victorian foreign policy, which is something that a Premier should never have been doing in the first place. So he shows that he's got a history of doing what he wants. And the announcement made on Friday is at odds with the actual policy espoused by Scott Morrison, the policy of the federal government. I have a clip that goes for nearly 3 minutes showing the contrast of Daniel Andrews' position versus Scott Morrison's position. I'm going to play it for you right now.
So first of all, I can announce that by Friday the 15th of October, every single authorised worker that is on that authorised worker list, whether they be in Melbourne or in regional Victoria, will need to have had at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. That is, if they want to continue working.
You and I, at the very beginning of this, talked about making vaccination compulsory. You said you'd look at it and then decided not to. You still have the power to make vaccination compulsory. Will you revisit that?
No.
Why not?
Because I think it's the wrong decision for Australia. It's just not how we do things, and I believe we'll achieve the vaccination rates that are essential that do not require that.
So do you support the companies who are making it compulsory? Several companies in the States, Google, Netflix, Washington Post, Qantas is looking at it here. Do you support companies making it compulsory for staff?
Well, you can't make a compulsory things that aren't able to be made compulsory under our laws. That's the first point I'd make. So any decisions that companies make have to be consistent with our laws, and particularly our employment laws. And I know they would be looking very carefully at that. Because I'm responsible for the decisions that we make, and the decisions that we make is that it's not mandatory. And there is only one area where that has been recommended, and that is for aged care workers.
So by Friday the 15th of October, all of those authorised workers, that is people who are going to work now and are not having to work by law from home, will need to have their first dose. They will need to have their second dose and be fully vaccinated by the 26th of November. This is critically important to keep the case numbers down so that we can open up on the 26th of October, get our freedom back, get the economy going again, and deliver the national plan. This is advice from both the Burnett Institute and advice from the Acting Chief Health Officer and the Public Health Team. And as all Victorians know and understand, if we are provided with that advice, then we follow that advice. The science is what will get us through this, and it's incredibly important that people who have not had a first dose and are an authorised worker, are moving, are out and about, are part of all of that movement that we know is so challenging when it comes to the spread of this virus. It's important indeed, critical and lawful. It'll be by law. They will need to be vaccinated with at least one dose.
We do not have a mandatory vaccination policy in this country. We do not have that. We are not proposing to have that. That is not changing. But an employer may wish to make a reasonable directive to staff, and if they do so, they would need to do so consistent with the law.
So what do you make of that at home, ladies and gentlemen? What did you ascertain from the video you just watched? I think the words of the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, not that I agree with him on a great deal, and not that I support him. Please don't get me wrong there. I am anything but a ScoMo supporter. But his words were very, very clear in relation to employers having the supposed right to choose. I don't think that anybody should be able to force anyone to engage in a medical intervention. That's my very, very firm view. I believe it's an abuse of human rights. I don't believe anyone, including employers. But you heard Scott Morrison. It's supposed to be the employer's right. So where are the Victorian employers standing up to Daniel Andrews? Where are the Victorian employers standing up and saying, well, hold on a second, ScoMo said this, and now you're saying this, what's the go? Now, are you an employer in Victoria? Will you be attempting to enforce this demand upon your employees, or will you do the right thing and will you be upholding their basic rights? Workers' rights matter. It's the workers, it's the employees that make our economy what it is. These are the people that pay all the tax, that create all the productivity. Now, I have some food for thought for Victorian employers, and I've got seven thoughts. 7 thoughts that I wanted to get across on this broadcast. So I'm going to read through them and tell me in the comments if you agree, if you don't agree. Feel free to contribute by putting your own thoughts in the comments, but let's just go for it. Let's smash through it. All right, 1, Daniel Andrews' demands are at odds with informed consent, which is a human right. Now, the defining characteristic of informed consent is that it must be without coercion. It must be without pressure or intimidation. I dare say there is very few things in this world less intimidating than the prospect of losing your livelihood if you don't participate in a medical intervention. What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? And informed consent is most definitely falls within human rights and the Charter of Human Rights. All right, so that's point number one. Agree or disagree? All right, 2. Daniel Andrews' ability or lack of ability to bully and abuse Victorian workers depends on you. I know I wrote 2 twice there, just pretend that it's only once. So Victorian employers, that's right, his capability to bully or to not bully the people of this state, that all comes down to you. 3, as an employer, your duty of care is to your employees, not to Daniel Andrews. True or false? All right. 4, workers' rights are sacred and must be upheld. As I mentioned before, we have a very rich history fighting for workers' rights in our country, and it boggles the mind to think that all of that hard work could be undone by an absolute grub who happens to be our Premier. All right, 5, it is a civic duty and moral obligation to disobey unlawful and inhumane demands. What do you think at home? True or false? 6, Daniel Andrews is at odds with the position of the federal government. I think I demonstrated that before, or maybe you think I didn't. If you disagree with that, feel free to go ahead and put that in the comments. All right, 7, Daniel Andrews is a power-hungry control freak and should be ignored. All right, that's just my opinion. I see Daniel Andrews and I see a fully grown man who's throwing temper tantrums and doubling down and getting angry and hurling insults at people who don't have the means of fighting back. Daniel Andrews is in a position of power, yet he routinely punches down at the citizens, the voters, the people that pay his bills, that pay his salary, that pay all the taxes, and he does so with no remorse. He thinks that he's not doing anything wrong. He truly sees himself as some type of almighty dictator who does what he wants, and it doesn't matter how many lives he destroys in the process. It doesn't matter the extent to which he degrades the people of Victoria. He's happy to do it. He's just happy to do it. He doesn't care who's humiliated. I mean, the humiliation this man is inflicting upon us and the lives that are going to be destroyed is on a level which ultimately can't be measured. I did a small video on the weekend in my car where I addressed some of these concerns, and I had a message for all the employees out there who are really hurting right now. And I see your comments, and I see how much pain that so many of you are going through. And the message is quite simple. If you choose to go ahead with the jab, not because you want to take it, but because you're concerned about your job and your income, I'll be here. I'll be fighting for you. And for those of you who resist, and for those of you who are willing to put it all on the line and to lose everything, you absolutely are my priority, and I'm going to fight for you until the absolute end. And I know how much strength that so many of you are showing during this time, and it is so inspiring to me. So keep on fighting, and stay strong and hold the line. So that's my basic message. And one more thing: if there's one thing you do today, ignore Daniel Andrews. All right, let's keep this moving along, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? All right, so where are we? All right, so there's been a few protests that took place here in Melbourne. Usually on Monday's show, we like to cover protests from around the country and also around the world. But we've just got a few from Melbourne. The tyranny, unfortunately, is continuing and doesn't look like it will be slowing down anytime soon. So we had a couple of protests. We had one on Friday and one on Saturday. The protest on Friday had a theme of wearing white t-shirts, and many of the protest attendees wrote their profession on the back. And in the featured image right here, you know the saying, a picture tells a thousand words. I think this is absolutely that. Teacher in the middle and police to either side. I mean, we should be looking after our teachers, the people that teach our children, that pass down the knowledge. They're not criminals, okay? These are peaceful people who are simply standing up for their bodily integrity. They're standing up for informed consent, and they're standing up for what should be all of our rights, the right to choose whether or not we want to participate in a medical intervention whereby it is a fact that the clinical trials are ongoing and are only scheduled to conclude in the years to come. It's just a matter of standing up for what's right. And I mean, Victoria Police, what goes through your mind when you see this image on the screen right there? Do you actually believe this woman is a criminal and she should be in handcuffs? A teacher? I mean, she could be teaching your children for all you know. Anyway, I've got a clip here, a bit of a compilation from some of the events from last Friday. I'm going to play that for you right now. Again, viewer discretion is advised. It's not as brutal as what we've seen in the past, but it's disturbing nonetheless. I'm going to play that for you right now.
This fast food! Look at this cunt! Fucking Jesus! Their behaviour.
Natalie, I never refused to give you my name. I'll give you my name. Let me go. You're hurting me. Natalie, let me go. I will give my name.
Senior Sergeant, and you'll come in my 1.5.
Give me your name. I will give you my name. I promise you.
What is it?
Cheryl is my name.
What's your last name, Cheryl? Gloves on, that looks dirty, bud.
What is your last name? I'm not playing games with you. What is your last name?
I'm not playing games either.
You are? Alright.
No, I'm not.
Pick her up and move her away from you.
Okay. All right, let me go. I'm going to give you my name.
Stand up, Cheryl.
I will stand up.
Stand up.
I will. Let me go. I will stand up. I'm not resisting. Just calm down. I'm coming. I'm coming.
Get up. Get up now.
Just my surgery. That surgery on that shoulder. Just my surgery.
All right, so as you see there, more tyranny from Victoria Police, but do we really expect anything else? You know, there's protests taking place all around the world, people around the world actually standing up for us Australians that have been subjected to this type of heavy-handed policing and all the tyranny that has emerged since the inception of this corona situation. I thought it was interesting in that video that one of the female officers said something to the victim to the effect of, "I'm not playing games with you." Now, is that a way that a police officer should be speaking to a member of the public, a person who pays the bills of police officers? And it's an interesting statement when you think about it. I'm not playing games with you. Well, what is Victoria Police doing? How are they not playing games? They are enforcing the non-evidence-based, abusive, corrupt policy of a government that is completely out of control, and supposedly we're the ones playing games. Okay? I mean, these police officers that speak to the public like that, I wonder, if you ask them the question, here's a little challenge for you. Ask one of these rude police officers the question, what is the infection fatality rate of the Delta strain, and justify to me how your policing policies are proportionate to that particular infection fatality rate. See what they say. They'll probably say something to the effect of, mate, I'm not going to talk about that. I don't have time to talk about that. The Chief Health Officer's directions are blah, blah, blah. All right, so do they even understand the basis for the policy of which they're enforcing? When I got arrested, one of the times I got arrested, I asked the officers as they were sort of starting to surround me. They were getting the handcuffs ready. I asked them the question point blank. Do you understand the basis for the policy that you're enforcing? And nobody could answer the question. I asked them about excess mortality. I asked them about transmissibility, infection fatality rates, case fatality rates even. All right, let's talk about case fatality rates if you don't want to talk about infection, and let's talk in terms of the government's very much inadequate reporting measures, but they don't want to. Now, I thought that policing was all about evidence, right? And if a policy is going to be enforced with force, okay, with very heavy force, you would understand. You would like to think that maybe the police would take some measures to investigate the nature of the chief health officer's directions and what exactly those directions seek to achieve in society. But unfortunately, we don't see that. We don't really see a great deal of questioning coming. What we see most of in Melbourne is a very simple mindset, especially when you're dealing with guys like public order response. They're not the brightest people, by the way. Just to let you know, they do have a bit of a reputation for being known as the rejects of Victoria Police, sort of unable to make it further, say, to critical incident response. So they kind of just stay in port, beating people up. I think the general mindset with a lot of these officers is that the law exists to be enforced, protesters are idiots, and therefore they deserve to be roughed up. I honestly think that's the view of many on the ground. Now, in saying that, I'm not by any stretch seeking to paint all police the same way. Okay, the people on the ground, we've seen absolutely disgraceful behaviour, but keep in mind there's many departments in Victoria Police. You've got many serious crime departments where you have many members who are very good at their jobs, things like solving actual crime, like drug trafficking, sex trafficking, murders, homicides, shootings, non-fatal shootings, things like that. So the work of those officers in those areas is invaluable to society. But the people that are out beating up protesters, I think not good for society. I think absolutely detrimental for society. I think those actions most definitely have eating away at whatever reputation Victoria Police once had. Anyway, that's a bit of a ramble. Let's keep it moving along, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? All right, I've got another video here. It was filmed and put together by an independent media person on YouTube, True Arrow. So whenever I play a video from independent media, I like to give them a bit of a plug because we are the new media, and it's this is why people are leaving the mainstream media in droves and instead turning on independent media. So we love to see the emergence of more people. This is a really interesting video that I'm about to play for you. It demonstrates the contrast between the march that took place around the Tan in the Botanic Gardens here in Melbourne after the Melbourne Demons won the grand final, and a different march that took place only a few days after, which was a freedom protest. And the police responded completely differently. Well, when the Melbourne Demons won the grand final, the police didn't respond at all. They just let them march, just like Black Lives Matter. But as soon as people started protesting against the government, especially in relation to that disgusting, outlandish demand of Daniel Andrews, they send in public order response and they're cracking heads. Because when you're celebrating AFL, the virus doesn't spread, therefore there's no risk to public health. But when you're protesting the government, that's when the virus is the most deadly. Anyway, I've got a clip here put together by True Arrow. I'm going to play it for you right now.
The day after the grand final, social distancing forgotten as hundreds of Melbourne fans gathered to march around the Tan.
Do not let them paint us as far right. We are not far right. We are peaceful protesters.
Yes, we are.
We believe in freedom and we believe in human rights for everybody. Yes,
Would you say you're typically on the left?
stand a chance. Far left, mate.
Far left.
Stand a chance.
So we got
Stand
a
a
far
chance.
left.
Come on, everybody.
So we got a lady on the far left. She says she's on the far left. She's now holding a microphone.
chanting F. Dan Andrews. Mainstream media are at the back here with security. We're walking up to Melbourne Societal Centre where I had Jordan Peterson here 3 years ago. Very different situation now. 45 minutes in here, going back to the gardens.
For our children! For our children!
Working along with zinc and other things, and I know they're poo-pooing it, and it's wrong that the TGA has stopped us from having access to early treatments, and that is wrong.
Thank you.
Many young families are concerned, especially about giving it to our children when we have no long-term safety data on the option. See, what I'm saying is not everyone has to agree with anything. I'm simply saying, why wouldn't you put that on the table? Why not?
Your questions are all for the government. Random protesters there with that. Police are walking faster. Struggling to keep up. Every time they pick someone off, there's a few less police who stay with the main group. Mainstream media have found something to report on here. You alright? Yeah. Mainstream media have lost their security, but they seem to be fine with that. Guns out again.
It's not fair that I'm literally only considering getting a vaccine for them. Like, that's not for my own protection. That's so I can teach these 9-year-olds.
We lost our jobs, we lost our homes, and you are arresting people. What crime are we committing? What crime am I committing now? I'm sitting here. I'm not going to move on. I'm going to stay here. You know, everybody's scared of the fines, not of the virus. That says a lot, doesn't it? They told him to move on. I'm not doing anything wrong. They said that we couldn't be in groups. I'm on my own. I told them, if you want to arrest me. I'm not doing nothing wrong.
And the only reason why I'm here today fighting is for her. I don't want her growing up in this society.
This man says he lost his job in construction.
We're not here to cause violence. We're here to fight peacefully for our rights.
You copped a fine, you're going to pay it?
No, I'll contest it because it gets dropped.
Police have moved in to stop protesters as they...
Yeah, so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Pretty clear the hypocrisy there. So once again, that was a true arrow on YouTube. Now, there was something that could have been pretty easy to miss in the video, and that was, I'm going to take you back and show you, but one of the arrests conducted by Public Order Response, there was a gentleman who was yelling brutality, he was yelling brutality over and over again. And I just wanted to mention, and this is with his complete blessing, that particular gentleman was a Victoria Police officer of 15 years and has left, and he's standing with the people and he's standing up for what's right. So I'm going to just play the clip for you again at that particular 2-minute mark, and you'll just have to pay attention because it is a little bit difficult to see based on the camera angle. So let me just pull that up.
The
Random protesters there with that.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There are really good police officers, and many of them are actually on the verge of leaving or they've already left. Others are involved in serious crime and taking care of actual criminal matters, not out beating up protesters. So I just wanted to make mention of that as well. Somebody put in the comments, where's Rukshan? Rukshan was covering these events on the day. So yeah. Anyway, let's keep this moving along, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? All right. Who here saw this? This is what you want to see. There was a very nice interaction between police and people out in Warrnambool. The people of Warrnambool had a protest, I believe it may have been yesterday, standing up for their rights, standing up for their own bodily integrity, and which should just be the basic right of every human. But you've got lunatics like Daniel Andrews trying to actually trample on those rights. And it was a great interaction, the type of interaction you want to see between the police and the public. So personally, from my experiences, I've had quite different experiences with country police versus police in the city. Maybe you're the same. I'm going to play this clip for you right now because I think it's nice that we also look at the good interactions, not just the bad. Is that fair enough?
You're not meant to protest, okay?
That's not right. You're saying it's illegal.
If you can't speak against the government, then they'll just run over us. Okay, listen. It might as well be Russia. Yeah. Okay. That's tyranny. It's the definition of tyranny. Well, the issue is that we're here to make sure that nothing gets out of hand. We don't want anyone hurt. We don't want... We have no volunteers. Okay.
Everybody's safe.
Okay, okay. We don't want anyone... We don't want any person to impede the movement of general citizens going about their business.
They're supporting us. They're clapping their hands. They're supporting us.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
We're very peaceful, sir.
We're caught between a difficult position.
If we're losing our job in 2 weeks, we have to let our voices be heard. In 2 weeks, we've got no job, sir.
We've got to enforce the Chief Health Officer's authority, okay? But we're also got to enforce, make sure the public is safe, okay? You need to uphold the Constitution, which gives us the right to no medical mandates.
Just let us march then. We're peaceful. Just let us march.
So don't impede any of the public.
We don't.
Okay? We're not going to steamroll you. We're local police. We understand you're local.
Do you mind if I ask you a question?
Stay on the green.
It's the Health Chief Officer, Daniel Andrews. Have they been jabbed? And why is it?
I'm not getting into that.
Why is it that they've got exemptions from vaccination passports, but the peasants, we're the peasants, we haven't. We can lose our jobs, they don't care about us.
I respect your
Thank you.
But I'm not going to get into the argument.
We have community support.
Thank you. You're a decent man.
Can we use the park?
So we're allowed here, sir.
We are allowed here. Thank you.
He's a nice man, a big bird.
All right, that was Shepherds of Tekoa on YouTube, and it is really nice to see, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? And that's what policing should be. Police officers, they're part of the community. They're supposed to be just like anyone else in the community, just with a certain job and a certain set of tasks and responsibilities. So what do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Do you think there can be a change in the police officers that we have here in Melbourne? Or do you think the chain of command is just simply too overpowering, too political, and there's no hope of any sort of reform in Victoria Police when it's here in the city? Personally, I'm very doubtful. I look at Victoria Police as an organisation, and I believe it's very political. You look at the nature of the appointment of the Chief Commissioner, and then even the appointment of assistant commissioners under the chief. And if you do a little bit of digging, you can most definitely find what one could argue to be perhaps some type of politicized situation, or perhaps some sort of motivation which could be attributed to political means. And that's something that we're going to investigate on MCJ Report. That's right. So specifically looking at those two top ranks and their potential or proven connections with politicians and or other bureaucrats. So that's actually a topic that I'm really interested in. It might upset a few people, but we don't care. We're MCJ Report, we're independent media, and what can I say? We'll keep running our show until the wheels fall off. Is that fair enough? The mainstream media won't do it, so we have to do it. To me, it's just like 1 + 1 = 2. But anyway, I like to show those types of things. So let's keep this moving along, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Alrighty. Alright, who here saw this? Who here knows who these people are? I mean, just Puppet 1 and Puppet 2. Is that a fair classification if I refer to these people as puppets? Well, I have to think that perhaps it possibly is. When Daniel Andrews was taking a little holiday and he gave himself a pay rise, you know the little holiday he took, is supposedly he fell down the stairs or something like that. We had that other guy, Molino, step in, who basically was Daniel Andrews, but with a different face and a different name. So now we see the Premier of New South Wales stepping down. We see her sidekick, I think the correct term is deputy or something like that, stepping down as well, the Barilaro or whatever his name is. The only reason I even know who that guy is because of that whole fiasco with the YouTuber, Friendly Geordies, I think his name is. But anyway, they've both said that they've had enough. They can't hack it. They can't take it anymore. And we see that a new figure is emerging, quite a young fellow. He's only 39 years old, who looks like he's in position to actually take over the role of Premier. Now, I really don't know anything about the guy, so I'll be reaching out to Sydney George and reaching out to my Sydney contacts to hopefully give a bit of a commentary on him. But I'm just going to have a bit of a read through a couple of articles, and any thoughts that you have on this particular individual, go ahead and put it in the comments. I don't know really anything about him, so I'm not going to be casting any views or anything like that, but we're certainly going to develop that on MCJ Report. All right, so Dominic Perrottet, I believe his name could be pronounced as, set to become New South Wales Premier and replace Gladys Berejiklian after deal struck. All right, says that he's set to become the state's next Premier. So this is him right there. Okay, so only 39 years old. Let's have a bit of a look here. He said he won't rule out changing COVID-19 roadmap. Okay, well, that doesn't really mean anything, right? When you have to, I would probably presume the term won't rule out changing means that if it was to change, it would be lessened, not enhanced. Okay, that seems to be my inclination. But again, politicians say all sorts of things. And I think if there's one thing we know beyond reasonable doubt, it's that you just can't take the word of a politician. Is that fair enough? All right, at least an Australian one. Or unless his name happens to be the legendary Craig Kelly or someone like that. You get what I mean, right? You get what I mean. All right, so what do we have here? What do we have? All right, this other guy, Rob Stokes, is staying in the race. But from what I've read, it doesn't look like he'll be getting in. So I think he's just sort of, exercising a bit of wishful thinking there. All right, we've got an article in the conversation here. So let's just have a bit of a read through. All right, Dominic is set to become the next Premier of New South Wales. Okay. All right, so his father works for the World Bank, and he's one of 12 children. The family are religious Catholics. He was elected to the state parliament in the landslide of 2011 at the age of 29. He says here that he's a conservative Catholic, and one of his original sponsors was member of the Legislative Council, David Clark, also a well-known conservative Catholic and leader of the Conservatives in the Liberal Party. He is pro-life and opposed to assisted dying. So will he be pro-human dignity? Will he be pro-people having the choice whether or not they want to participate in a medical intervention? I'm yet to actually ascertain what his views are on mandatory vaccinations. And you have to think that if he's holding true to his faith, then in good conscience, I wouldn't think that someone like Dominic could possibly support mandatory vaccinations or support the prospect of a two-tier society where certain groups of people are treated better than others. But I mean, that's not really here nor there. We see other people running around calling themselves conservatives, calling themselves Christians, etc., and then acting in ways that you would think would be at odds with their set of values. So ScoMo, right? Doesn't ScoMo claim to be a practicing religious person, and then he just screws over the entire country? Anyway, so here's what do we have here? He said that he was in a rift regarding a lockdown extension. All right, so he's shown opposition in the past to lockdowns or specifically extending lockdowns. So it says here, this is an article by Sky News a couple months ago. He split with the consensus view, arguing it was time to change the thinking on COVID-19 and to learn to live with infections in the community. You mean the way that we've lived with infections in the community since like the dawn of human existence? You mean that sort of thing? Yeah, all right. Okay, fair enough. Goes on to say here, according to The Australian, the Treasurer rejected the proposal for an extended lockdown on the grounds it would cause devastating harm to businesses across Greater Sydney. Okay. All right, so it's good that he was opposed to it. Where exactly this is heading, not too sure. Okay, it says, here's another article. He's the current Treasurer. New South Wales Treasurer resists calls for stricter lockdown. So, I mean, we'll just have to see where it goes. I don't really have an opinion. If you have an opinion, go ahead and put it in the comments. What do you think about this guy, Dominic? Do you think he's going to be better than Gladys Berejiklian? Worse? Exactly the same? Do you think he will take bold measures to perhaps relieve the people of Sydney? Do you know what his actual views are in relation to corona, mandatory vaccinations, things like that? So I really have no idea. I'm more basically putting the question to you and asking you, the audience. I'm going to be bringing people on from Sydney to give commentary on what they think about him. Sydney George is all over politics, so Sydney George will be coming back. Also, perhaps Chris from Chris Coveries. And maybe Craig Kelly. Maybe Craig Kelly would be a good person to get some inside information from. I think that would be probably our best bet for a real honest opinion. Pamela says that Tanya Davies is in favour of Dominic. Well, if Tanya's in favour of him, that to me is a tick. That to me says something quite reasonable. I like the way Tanya Davies presents. I like how measured she is and the principles that she's standing up for. And if she has indeed given her endorsement to this individual, then that to me is something positive. What do you think? Put your thoughts in the comments. Anyway, we're just about at the end of the show here. So let me just pull up the MCJ Report website, and the website's going to change, by the way. It's going to become a lot more simplistic and less cluttered and user-friendly. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. All right, so mcjreport.com. If there's one thing you do today, click in the top right-hand corner and join our free newsletter. That's right. So the top right-hand corner, join our newsletter, and that way you can ensure that we never lose touch. That's right. So even if I get booted off all the social media platforms, I can still send emails out. And if you would like to financially contribute to the show, you can do so at mcjreport.com/donate. Of course, your support is what keeps this show running. In saying that, if you're going through a difficult time or if you're about to be faced with a difficult time, I urge you to not contribute to this show. Please take care of yourself, and MCJ Report will be here for when times get better. So that's that. All right. So we're nearly at the end of the hour. I'm definitely keen to do some Q&A. So we've got the little chat box up here. If anyone has any questions for me, feel free to put it in the comment section right now, and we can have a little bit of a talk. What can I tell you? I've got a meeting tonight after the show with Jonathan Andrews from Bose & Case Solicitors, okay? So I would really like to thank everybody for all your patience regarding this matter. And Jonathan and I are going to be discussing tonight, and I'm seeking to have him on the show, I'm hoping tomorrow. So thank you all for being very patient with that. And, Brett Sutton, there's a lot of pressure on him right now, I tell you what. And I can see everyone on Rumble. We averaged about 300 live viewers on Rumble for the duration of this show. So thank you to all the Rumblers out there. And if you have any questions on Rumble, you can put that in the comments as well. Yeah, Troy, you're referring to some statements Clive Palmer made on Gladys. Would you like to just remind us of what those statements were? You can post them in the comments. Just having a read down here. Lou says in 2016, Dominic wrote an awesome post about Trump and said brilliant things, and that there was a secret majority that believed in human rights. All right, well, if he did indeed write that, let's hope that he's staying true to that perspective. The nurses from the press conference, Nathan says, well, the government will give a voice to whoever the government chooses to give a voice to. We saw our very own, the great Dr. Mark Hobart, who wrote a comprehensive letter with cited research to Brett Sutton, right, in relation to coronavirus antibody positive elderly people and the vaccine. And we saw Dr. Mark Hobart completely ignored. We've seen so many of our homegrown esteemed experts completely ignored by the government because the government doesn't care. They will bring on anybody that reinforces their politically driven agenda. That's why we just need an absolute shuffling of the guard. That's right. Our parliament needs to look very, very, very different. We need more people in our parliament to the likes of Craig Kelly. And as you know, I'm putting my hand up. I'm saying if you want me to be in there, you may have the opportunity to vote for me, depending on which house I run in and what electorate. So there you go. Sally says I could have reminded you to change daylight savings. You're right. That was actually pretty rude of me. So I didn't know myself. Actually, it caught me by surprise when my clock changed automatically on my phone, and I said, "What in the world is going on?" And so much going on that I'm not even paying attention to the changing of the seasons. Someone asked, was Brett Sutton arrested? I've heard talk about that, and it's possible. Peter says, do I know what's happening with the legal proceedings in New South Wales? Well, what I'd really like is a comment from the legal team. So I've just put a note to myself to follow up on that. So thank you for reminding me about that. So I can tell you right now, somewhere in Melbourne, Brett Sutton is not having fun. He is not having fun. He's got a lot on his plate. He is one stressed out little puppy dog right now, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you that. Levent says, doesn't our Biosecurity Act overshadow Dan's mandatory jabs? Well, I don't know. I can't really give a legal opinion. But what I can tell you about Daniel Andrews is that the only thing he's worthy of is being ignored. He doesn't belong in Parliament. He belongs behind bars. And I am quietly confident that one day that will happen. All right. I like to be a dreamer. I like to be optimistic. And I think there's a very substantial argument in that much of what Daniel Andrews is doing, has done, and continues to do is most likely unlawful. Just reading down the comments, it's so great to see you guys here. I restocked on the media is lying to you t-shirts, by the way. So mcjreport.com/shop. We've got a new system now. I have a dedicated person packing MCJ merchandise, which means that I have more time to dedicate to the show and interviews and so forth. So it's great. Mary says you're very concerned about the mental health. So am I. And we're going to have more mental health experts on the show. And a lot of people are going to go through a lot of hurt. I have a number of supporters who are not willing to take the jab, even if it means losing their job, losing their homes, losing everything. Now, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I don't judge anyone for what decision they make. I judge the government, and the role of MCJ Report and my political ambitions is it's focused on the country, it's focused on the people. That's what I want to do. I want to fight for you. Whether you've been treated inhumanely and gotten this jab, or if you're standing strong, refusing, then I'm particularly motivated to fight for you. But all people, like people that voluntarily get the jab, great, no problem. That's what living in a free society is supposed to be about. You want it, take it. But it's just the government should be providing more comprehensive safety reports and not withholding crucial information that prohibits vaccine consumers from making a proper informed decision. Okay, so that's another thing. Just reading down here. There's a lot of comments. Let's see. Someone says that you cross your fingers that Andrew goes to prison. Yeah, well, all right, fair enough. Has anyone asked the Victorian governor what she thinks about Dan's treatment of Victorians? Linda Dessau. Does she even have an email address? Does she answer the phone? Does she have any interaction with the public whatsoever? Or does she just sit there signing documents? And, I mean, can someone please explain to me what the governor's schedule on a daily basis looks like? Because somehow I missed the memo. Yeah, well, Gary, you can thank the TGA for that. What are your thoughts on the Therapeutic Goods Administration just moving the goalpost, prohibiting the off-label prescription for a very popular medical treatment that is so hugely sought after throughout the world, cheap to make, has shown tremendous promise in a range of different clinical trials, and the TGA says, no, you're not allowed to take it. We don't want you taking that. We don't want you disturbing the profits and future profits of the shareholders from Pfizer and AstraZeneca. You know, they've got mansions to buy and boats to purchase. So who are you, measly civilian, trying to take a alternative? How dare you? Tell you what, the Therapeutic Goods Administration, I dare say, needs to be absolutely overhauled. Disbanded, overhauled, and repealed and replaced. That's what we need in this country. We gotta think big. Is that fair enough? There's Dragon there. How you going, my friend? Christina says 1,000 steps. Is that enough for Dan? 1,000 steps. You gave me a visual there of the 1,000 steps in the Dandenongs, right? Who here is familiar with the 1,000 steps in the Dandenong mountains? Put your hand up if you're familiar. Are those the type of steps you're referring to? But anyway. It's a product. Yeah, you're right. It is a product. I mean, I tell you what, the shareholders of the pharmaceutical corporations, they are just absolutely loving life right now. They're laughing at everybody. They're making more profit than what they've ever made in their lives. They have a new market of billions of people that are being mandated to consume their products, not once, but perhaps as many as 3-4 times a year. They don't have to spend any money on marketing. Okay, governments, mainstream media and celebrities do all the marketing that the pharmaceutical corporations need. And now they get to sit back and laugh all the way to the bank. I mean, Pfizer is developing a drug that is designed to treat the known side effects of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Like they're just capitalizing on everything right now. The greed of these pharmaceutical corporations holds no limits. These corporations are absolutely disgusting, and I think that pharmaceutical lobbying needs to be investigated in Australia. I think the relationship between the government, the TGA, the health department, etc., and the pharmaceutical corporations needs to be investigated with a fine-tooth comb. And I think that we would find probably a few things that we wouldn't be all that surprised about. Let me put it that way. What do you think? What do you think? Yeah, Daniel Andrews is sick with power. That's right. He's loving it. For so many years now, he would just probably lay awake at night thinking, how can I be more like Xi Jinping? And then Corona came along, and we saw the enactment of these emergency powers, and Daniel Andrews wound up in a position where essentially he was able to impose directions unilaterally enforced and then carried out and enforced by a violent police force. He loves it. He loves it. He's got the Xi Jinping complex, and it needs to stop. It needs to stop. What can I say? Yeah, Deb, I actually made a presentation on Pfizer's corporate rap sheet. You can go to mcjreport.com, click on special reports. I did like an hour presentation on all of Pfizer's lawsuits, the lives that they've destroyed, the lies that they've told in relation to their products, the intentional, all right, Pfizer has a history of intentionally withholding known side effects of their products for the purpose of cashing in on their products. Why in the world would we trust a company like Pfizer to provide billions of doses of their product, knowing their corporate rap sheet, knowing all the lives they've destroyed? And I tell you what, the only people that have been paid out by Pfizer, right, pretty much, are people that had the means and the fight in them to take the court proceedings all the way, all right? Because Pfizer, they don't like paying out victims, their own victims, okay? They don't like doing it. They've got a very capable legal team, the best the money can buy, and they're not scared to use it. All right. Oh yeah, something else, right? The whole liability thing, right? They got a new market of billions of people, right? They've got the indemnity. They've got the governments and mainstream media taking care of their marketing. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace. It's just an absolute disgrace. I read that even at Pfizer, they're not mandating the jab. I'd have to, yeah, I mean, boggles the mind, doesn't it? Penny says that the FDA just released blood clot meds for children. Really? That's right. All right. Well, anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to wrap this show up. If there's one thing you do today, go ahead and sign up to my email list, mcjreport.com/join. If you'd like to buy a t-shirt, it's mcjreport.com/shop. And that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll be back tomorrow night for MCJ Report 114. And I gotta run into a meeting right now with Jonathan from Bose & Case Solicitors to talk about, guess who? To talk about Brett Sutton. So I'll let you know tomorrow how that goes. All right. Lots of love, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for watching the show. I appreciate each and every one of you. Stand strong, regardless of what decision you make regarding Daniel Andrews' demands. I will be here fighting for you. Thank you. Signing out.
Mm-hmm.